Welcome to the September 22, 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce the staff and commission members present. Commissioners present include myself, Vice Chair Jennifer Baskin, Commissioner Peter Diepenbrock, Commissioner Peter Joshua, and Commissioner David Thomas. Staff present includes Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhart, Senior Office Assistant Linda Munguia, and I do not believe we have anyone additional on, or let me see here. Okay. Linda will also be the staff liaison for the commission during the meeting. Linda, will you please take a moment and provide instructions to the commission and members of the public in attendance on how the meeting will proceed? You are on mute.
Oh, got the notification. Okay, so members of the commission should keep their cameras on and their microphones off until they are recognized by the chair. Commissioners should raise their hand to indicate they wish to speak. And if a member of the public wishes to speak during a public comment period, please notify the staff liaison by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you are dialing in, you can use the *9 to engage the raise hand function. And public comment will be heard in the order received and is limited to 3 minutes in length. And then when it's your turn for public comment, staff will unmute you.
Thank you very much, Linda. So under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name, address, or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Linda, do we have any public comments at this time?
If any public in attendance would like to address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda, go ahead and use the raise hand feature. No, I don't see any public comment.
Great. So moving on the agenda to regular business. Do we have, these would be the remarks by Mayor Drew Combs, City Council Liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission. I would like to welcome our Mayor and the City Council Liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, Drew Combs. Now,
yes, and I could chime in there, Vice Chair. The Mayor is not present at this time. He may not be able to attend after all, after the agenda was published. He may be able to pop in later. If he does, then we'll let you know.
okay.
But for now, he's not here at the moment.
Okay. Well, we will remain flexible to accommodate the mayor if and when he is able to join us. So let's move on to item D2, accept the Parks and Recreation Commission minutes for the meeting of August 25th, 2021. There is an attachment that we were able to review ahead of time. Linda, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, if any members of the public would like to address the commission for items D2 of the agenda, go ahead and use the raise hand feature. No, I don't see any public comment at this time.
Okay, great. And does the commission have any edits or comments to the minutes from the August 25th meeting? I will take our silence as they look accurate. So at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of August 25th, 2021. Would one of the commissioners like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'm happy to second that.
Great. So I'll allow Linda to take a vote to approve the Parks and Recreation minutes for the August 25th, 2021 meeting.
Yep. Vice Chair Baskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock,
Yes.
Commissioner Joshua,
Yes.
and Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, the motion to approve the Parks and Rec Commission meeting minutes of August 25th has unanimously passed.
Great, thanks. Moving on to item D3, select a new Parks and Recreation Commission chair. There was a attached staff report on that as well for everyone to review. The chair does serve for the remainder of the 2021-2022 fiscal year, so until May of 2022. So actually a shorter period than normal, the full year term. Are there any clarifying questions from the commission on the duties of the chair and vice chair before taking public comments? Okay, and do we have any public comment, Linda, on this item?
Okay, if anyone would like to address the commission on item D3, go ahead and use the raise hand feature now. I do not see public comment.
Okay, well, at this time, would anyone like to nominate themselves or nominate a commissioner for chair at this time? I will say, having served as chair and now as vice chair, it's a pretty straightforward, a very rewarding role, and you'd actually have a shorter term and a more flexible situation with us being half on Zoom and hopefully one day in person. I'm sure soon enough. So that's just some comments from me before we make a motion to select a new chair.
And Madam Vice Chair, if I may, I would just add that the staff provides all the kind of back end support for the chair, assisting with, planning the agenda, getting the agenda posted, taking the minutes, prepping, in advance of the meeting by putting some notes together just to make sure that the rules of order and everything are followed. So do everything to make the task, very straightforward and simple on that end. So you can just really focus on chairing the meeting. And it's something that every single one of the commissioners is absolutely qualified for. And I think, in an ideal world, every single commissioner would serve as chair at some point in their tenure.
Yeah, I will say that has been the history of the commission, is that we have rotated the chair role. I do think in many ways it makes for a more successful commission, because you've had people that have just more interest in helping to select the agenda, have, as Sean mentioned, the full resources of the staff at your disposal. And then, of course, if at any time something comes up that you're not able to serve at chair at that meeting, we have a vice chair that can step into the place and make sure that we can still have a meeting and a quorum, hopefully. So I will say, for the just as a tradition, and just for the functioning of the commission, to have it rotate works best for it to kind of continue on, as people then tend to roll off after serving a term or two, generally.
I'll even go one step further, if I may, Madam Vice Chair, which is that we have in the past had a number of first-year commissioners serve as chair, so that's not a barrier to serving either. I'll just add that.
Are there any questions, or anyone would like to kind of discuss maybe their thoughts around, possibly being able to serve?
Jennifer, as I expressed earlier, I don't quite have a bandwidth right now. what I would be able to do is serve as vice chair if you continue to serve as chair. Is that a viable option for you?
Unfortunately, not for me. It essentially would be the same thing as myself serving as chair another round, because I've had fairly very consistent attendance at all the meetings. That is also something the city council does look at, is they look at attendance. So in order to serve as a commissioner, they rarely, you rarely miss a meeting unless you're on some formal leave or, life has come up. So it really wouldn't make quite much of a difference. I really offered, I've served as vice chair already before, and obviously chairs for more than a term. And I'm staying on the commission to help and be here as needed, but truly I am well into my second term on the commission, so in year 6 already, and it just would kind of make more sense for the continuation of the commission to have the rotation move on.
Jennifer, do we know if Mark is interested or not, or what?
He was not interested this time either. So in full disclosure, I did chat with a number of, well, pretty much everyone else. David?
Yeah, Peter Joshua doesn't want to be chair. I'm happy to nominate myself.
Thank you. We appreciate you stepping up to the task at hand.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. And at this point, Linda, could we take a vote on that?
Yeah. Vice Chair Baskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock,
Yes.
Commissioner Joshua,
Yes.
for right now, Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to select Commissioner David Thomas as chair has passed unanimously.
Thank you. You're going to be excellent.
Congratulations.
Here
and thank
to
you.
congratulations, and it's going to be great. We promise, and you have the full support of all of us and the staff behind you on this. So congratulations and thank you.
Hey,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you. David.
Normally, we turn over the chair notes. I don't know, Sean, if you're ready to do that, or if this is the appropriate thing, given it's just turned over, or if I shall continue to run with the next item.
Well, what is the will of the chair and vice chair? I could transmit the notes to David by email. He is a relatively new commissioner, so I just want to kind of check with him his comfort level of taking over the meeting like midstream like this.
Yeah, I probably, well, we leave it to you if you'd like me to kind of continue on with this meeting, or if you'd like to take it over midstream as had been in the past, but we'll leave that to you.
Jennifer, you're doing great. Why don't you continue? I'm also physically not doing so well right now, so it'd be great to take over next time.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right, so I will, sorry about that. Let's move on to the next item, which is the work plan subcommittee. We did have a staff report here, and do you want to do a little explanation, Sean, on these subcommittees, since half of us are pretty new to this?
Yeah, so the subcommittee is just one possible way you could kind of get some of the work done on the work plan. There's other ways you could do it just in an open session entirely of the commission. The way a subcommittee would typically work is the commission either by acclamation or by just the chair appointing. Typically a subcommittee in this commission would be comprised of 3 or fewer members because it's not a quorum. Once there's a quorum, you have to do public notices of the meetings and everything, and it makes it a lot harder to just get the business part of it done. So that's a subcommittee is the recommendation. But although again, you could just do it in an open session, just to kind of work through, take the previous work plan. And so the work plan is done every 2 years, typically by the commissions. And it's basically just kind of like an outline document of like, here are sort of our major priorities as a commission. Here's some of our major goals, some of the major projects that we want to focus on or that we are focusing on over the next couple of years. You know, there's even like a little matrix that you can just kind of fill out to make it pretty simple. And then just report that to the council. And, you know, they would like kind of accept it, or they may have comments on it if they see something they have questions about. And that's typically done every 2 years. And it's the time again to do that. Typically it's September of each year, but because of COVID and the city council agenda workload, it's been kind of delayed a little bit. So there's some time to work out the details. In past years, it's typically been a subcommittee, whether formal or sort of informal, of, you know, a couple of members with staff supporting, typically have a meeting to kind of knock out some recommendations to bring back to the full commission to discuss and then adopt. So that's one path. Another path could be to just agendize a review of the work plan, like say next month, and then just go at it cold and just do it as a group. So either or. We found that subcommittee sometimes works a little better because then, you know, that smaller group can just work out the details and bring it back. So whatever the preference is, but that's,
Yeah, so
that's the overview.
Yeah, I do recall. So that's a great overview for our newer commissioners. I do feel, and I would love to hear other people's opinion on this before we dive too deep, but do we have to ask for public comment before we can kind of discuss the item possibly being on a next agenda? So ask for public comment first. Okay.
Yes.
So Linda, at this time, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yeah, so if any attendees would like to address the commission on item D4 of the agenda, go ahead and use the raise hand feature. I do not see any public comments.
So in light of us having 4 commissioners present, 2 of which are serving as chair and vice chair, and 2 of the more tenured commissioners not in attendance, I actually feel like it would be more prudent of us to push this or move this item to the next meeting. So I don't want to delay it, but I do think there's some historical work that was done last year and thoughts that were put together that, you know, kind of need to be revived by some more tenured commissioners and possibly give them the opportunity to be on it. Would we need to take a vote on moving that to the next month?
Typically, how many commissioners are on the sub commission?
So for example, a few years ago when we were working on the Nealon Park Playground, that formed a subcommittee because it did encompass just those 2 commissioners meeting with, say, the manufacturer and having other meetings that were related to just that one project. And so with regards to our work plan is also, we have a master plan and then a work plan, which is a much more condensed function of that. And so the subcommittee could be focused on that. And again, historically it's been 2, could be 3 people. But in terms of, say, the playground project we had, I'm using that as an example because that was the most recent example. Within the past couple of years, it was 2 people.
And there's a requirement that it cannot be a quorum of the complete commission. Is that correct?
Well, if it does reach a quorum, then it's basically needs to be noticed as a special meeting of the full commission. So yeah, it kind of is no longer a subcommittee.
So how many subcommittees were there in, let's say, the last 2 years?
Well, they're really, you know, we didn't have one while we were on hiatus from COVID. So that was about 5 to 6 months. So in the last 2 years, And I'd say Nelon Park has been open for 2 years. So 3 years ago, there was a subcommittee of 2 people.
Mhm.
And we also had, before that, there was also a subcommittee that was working with the Transportation Commission with regards to some of the development going on in Menlo Park and things that would kind of cross over with our commission. So I believe Sarah Staley Shank had served on 2 different subcommittees, and I believe those were the 2. So there's, in my recent memory, I think there's been, 2 or 3 subcommittees, but that's over the course of, 5 or 6 years that I've served.
Thank you.
So to Vice Chair Baskin's comment about, pushing this item to the next meeting, if there's sort of a general consensus among the group that makes sense. This item is not particularly time sensitive, so pushing it a month, it's not going to really hinder, because you do have an existing work plan, so you just keep going with that one until you can update it. So I'm happy to just put it on the agenda for next month if that's the will of the commission.
Does everyone seem to be in agreement with that? I'm seeing a lot of head nodding and thumbs up. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move that to the next agenda then, next month's agenda. So next we have informational items. So informational items are transmitted to the Parks and Recreation Commission in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question of any informational items. But I believe we will put that on hold to revert back to regular business D1, remarks by Mayor Drew Combs. Welcome, Mayor.
Hey, Chair Baskin, how are you? My apologies, a little miscommunication in my schedule, but glad that I could join.
It was perfect timing.
I think whenever you say let's go back, it probably isn't perfect timing, but I appreciate you.
But it was a very non-controversial. It was actually right in a middle of the agenda item, so it was perfect.
Okay, well, totally cool. Well, happy to be able to join. Again, my apologies to everyone that I wasn't here at the time I should have been, but glad I'm able to join. As I think you all know, I am the council liaison to the Parks and Rec Commission. Before I was the liaison, Ray Mueller was the liaison, and so was happy to take it over for him. This I think starting this year. At my year as mayor, and I plan to, obviously, even though I'll roll off being mayor, I plan to continue to be the liaison to the Parks and Rec Commission. And for me, I think that Mr. Reinhardt can attest, it is the parks and recreational programming. The parks and recreational program are like really important to me. One of the things this council year that I helped spearhead was pulling down additional Measure T funds, just so that we made sure that we had like all we needed to be really sort of aggressive in getting to some of those projects on the parks master plan. And I think when you look at sort of smaller suburban communities like Menlo Park, one of the main value adds that they have to their communities is sort of parks and recreational programming. And Menlo Park has always, or at least for a very long time, really had a pretty robust offering in that. It's been in the news recently. I know now that like per percentage of city square miles, we have less than normal park acreage. That is something that has come up a lot recently. So I know that we're probably a little deficient in that, but overall, I think when it comes to recreational programming, it is something that I think is a value add to the community, and one of the ways in which the city stands out. And I think it'll be even more so important in the context of the reality that we're all in, and with the pandemic. Where we're at exactly in the pandemic, I won't venture to guess. But wherever we are, I think we know that sort of bringing back online some of those park and rec services has been key. Like, right, and going forward, I think that what we decide to do, what are those timelines we decide to commit to, are going to be really important. One of the main discussions last night at the council meeting was about the gymnastics program, and staff had brought that back, and I know you guys saw that too, to the city council as a direct result of city council interest and desire to really see that program be restarted and reactivated as soon as possible. Last night we decided that now is probably too soon, right? But we do have a plan to reopen that's there. We have some sense of what those finances will look like, at least for that first year, and I think it is something that we're really positioned well to get started. I think as soon as things, whether it's sort of getting more clarity on when the vaccines will be available to younger, for kids in the community, or some other, sort of key data point. But I do think it is something that we're now well positioned to start. And so with that, I'll pause. If there's any questions, or Chair Baskin, if there is anything that I should have covered that I didn't cover, definitely let me know. But I would definitely encourage you guys. I know I've connected with most of you in connection with your service on this commission. Some of you, like Mr. Joshua, who's a resident of the Willows, I know before his service on the commission, but happy to. We're looking forward to connecting with him specifically in connection with his service on the commission. But I look forward to being able to touch base on a one-on-one basis with all of you before the year's out.
Thank you so much, Mayor Combs. One specific question, because I, in honesty, I did not follow. Was there an actual date set yet on the reactivation of the program, or it's just been passed that it will be reactivated?
Yeah, so we didn't set a date. I think informally, staff is going to sort of check in with probably the mayor and vice mayor, maybe early to mid-December, and sort of see what it, take in some key data points in connection with where we are with the pandemic. And then at that point, make a decision about sort of rescheduling it. So putting it back on the council agenda. So then at that point, obviously, there'll be a determination about date. And so,
Gotcha.
yeah, so
your thing.
Yeah, so a long way to say no, there is no specific date yet. There's, I think, going to be a check-in with staff and council leadership in early December, and about sort of re-agendizing it for the for the full council. But I appreciate that it's like really important, and I think it was a tough decision to not sort of fully commit to the reactivation plan like immediately. And I have some resident calls that I need to return on this topic, and I know some people are disappointed, but I think that the city's position has always been one has always been a commitment to an abundance of caution. And so in that sense, we have been in a lot of our services slower to reactivate, to recommit than in comparison to the private sector. And I think that there's many reasons for that, and valid, and I commend those in the private sector for proactively getting us as a society and a community back to the things of which are part of our normal activity. But I do think it is prudent for the city to take a little bit of a slower pace when it comes to reactivation, especially as it relates to, what can be considered non-essential services. Of course, obviously, things like the childcare program is back, and I know that is because of course that childcare component is an essential service provided by the city.
Okay, so understanding that, I guess, just a comment from what we're looking to do, and I think what we found successful. One of the things that has been really successful, and I want to give some kudos to Peter Diepenbrock for this, is really pushing the pickleball pilot program that started at Kelly Park and is now doing very well at Nealon Park. The importance of physical activity, being outside, socializing, like the things that we're trying to do to have equity and a one Menlo Park type of feeling, to me, coming out of this pandemic is super important. So I think what we're trying to do is be creative of what services can we provide outside that would be cross ages, cross gender, cross everything, that we can make actionable movements here, because there's so many things that I feel like, socially have been affected by the pandemic that we could do given, our space and our weather and all this. So I think some ideas that we had that have even come across people reaching out to us, a chess club email recently came through, which can be held outdoors. Disc golf, it was another idea that Peter brought about that could be held outside. But it even got me thinking to some of these services, such as the gymnastics program that had been traditionally held inside, could we be creative in our thinking and bring some of these things outside, given weather and how that has proven to be a bit more safer. So that's just a flavor of some of the stuff we've been working on, just to give you an idea, and also kind of maybe, if there's a way that we can support some of these maybe traditionally indoor or very coveted services we provided. I mean, you and I both are big fans of gymnastics. That would be something we would be excited to work on, because I do think that the commission is excited to work on things that are really actionable and achievable within maybe a shorter time frame, given we had been put on hold for so long with COVID, and just the idea of playground renewal is going to take a lot more time.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know. I joke, play structures are modern day cathedrals, given how
the resources are working.
It's like a generational project.
Yes.
But yeah, no, and I think first, totally supportive of that, and totally agree that like we should be thinking out of the box. What can we do? What can we do outside? And I definitely see like the commission, you guys as being like the people sort of ideating, putting those ideas out there and really sort of stress testing them with the staff, like, what are some of the trade-offs, how practical it is. And yeah, but I definitely think that that's what that's the stance we need to have. Like, what are ways in which we can approach bringing services back that are, that prioritize like sort of healthy engagement, and a lot of that is of course outside. And so very much supportive of sort of thinking of ways to sort of things that happen inside to bring them outside. And I'm glad you brought up the pickleball example in a sense, because I know that Commissioner Diepenbrock, it's something that like he has been passionate about. We had I think a 30, 45 minute conversation about it, which was mainly him telling me about it, and it was clear that he was passionate. And that's the key to this service, right? It is something that you're passionate about and committed to. And so the extent to which there are, again, things that we have traditionally provided one way, that we can sort of, do a little differently, that we can have pilot programs, again, like with pickleball, I think is really going to be the path forward over definitely the next year.
Thanks. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions or items they want to discuss with Mayor Combs?
Totally cool. It's great to see you all again. My service on the city started on a commission, the bike commission, which no longer exists, and then the planning commission. And so and maybe one day I'll go back to a commission and get a little bit more sleep than being on the city council. But you know, this is what really makes Menlo Park special, and that there is really smart, engaged, talented, committed people that are willing to volunteer their time. So thank you, personally, and thank you on behalf of the city council. And I look forward and excited to working with all of you guys in the months and in the years ahead. And again, like, there is the interaction of me on council and you as a commissioner, but there is also the personal interaction. We're all members of this community. Like with Peter, who lives in the Willows. I've had a number of discussions about the community in connection with him. With Jennifer, our kids have, she's come to my kids' birthday parties and stuff like that, and it's always great seeing. And it's been great seeing her family grow. I can say that because I think there was just two little ones when we first met, and so again that's what it's all about. Again, that we're all in this community together and really sort of doing our part to to make it better for all of us. And so thank you for your service. I'm here, and definitely for those who I haven't, like I said, had a one-on-one with, I know I'm using a work term, one-on-one with, then let's definitely get that calendared, and yeah, and definitely again, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and I know we won't be shy to reach out on anything, and we appreciate the update from your end. So thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll still be here, but I'll go off camera.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
So we can now move on to informational items. E1, holiday observances and special events. Linda, do we have any public comments on this item?
So if any attendees would like to address the commission on items E1, go ahead and use the raise hand feature. I do not see any public comment.
So, Madam Vice Chair, the staff does have a brief presentation just to kind of give a little bit of context and overview, and just hopefully spark a little bit of discussion here among the commission tonight on this topic. And the topic is community events. Let's just scroll these all open. As we kind of embark upon this conversation, just a little background. It's not on the slide, as you know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Events had been essentially suspended, because of the, people congregating poses a public health risk. And there had been for many months, pretty strict restrictions on, kind of larger scale kind of gatherings. So, but now with vaccines and, a lot of progress has been made on the pandemic. We're not out of the woods yet, but we are beginning, well, we're more than beginning, but really looking at, okay, what do community events look like? When do they come back? What kind of phasing, if any, happens? And also this opportunity, with, we have to kind of rebuild some event plan kind of from the ground up, is an opportunity to re-examine, hey, why are we doing events? What are they for? And you try to build it back better, as you may have heard the phrase being used in regard to the pandemic. So that's a little bit of background. The City Council asked, very rightly so, for the Parks and Recreation Commission to engage in some conversation about this, working with staff, with the ultimate goal of developing kind of an initial draft plan for the council to consider later this calendar year. The City Council's reopening plan that was adopted before the summer really contemplates larger scale events not coming back until calendar year 22. So next calendar year, just out of that abundance of caution that the mayor mentioned earlier, and that proved to be some pretty valuable foresight, with the Delta variant and some other things that have happened since then. But we are kind of still on that track. So I'll turn to the slides here. Some considerations as you have this discussion are about, what are the desired goals and outcomes for events? What is it that we're trying to achieve in doing community events or organizing them? One specific topic that the City Council discussed that they were hoping to get some input from the Parks and Recreation Commission about are about city-sponsored events that are associated with religious holidays. In particular, one topic of discussion was the holiday tree lighting, and there's kind of a holiday festival associated with that in past years. And although it says holiday, it's many of the trappings are related to Christmas, which is a religious observance. And there was some question as to what extent should the city be engaged in what seems to be a religious observance that maybe not all members of the community feel is inclusive of them, because they may be of a different religion. So that's another consideration. Just the budget and staff capacity for events, and the organizational roles. What roles does the city have in doing events? What roles do maybe other potential community stakeholders or partners have in producing community events? Certainly COVID-19 is with us and will continue to be with us for some time yet. And so what do those precautions and rules have to say about it? And then also, finding what is the balance that we want here in our community between, traditions and preserving those, many very important, but also innovations and progress, and maybe even creating new traditions. And so we're kind of in this moment in time where it's almost like the sky is blue sky, and just kind of embarking on exploration of what's really possible here. So those are some of the considerations. Let's open up so on the potential goals and outcomes, there's just a few to kind of get the brainstorming going, if you will, the ideas. And there's a number of potential goals and outcomes for events. One is just straight up, let's just celebrate. Let's have a party. That's a legitimate potential goal and outcome. The more people have fun and celebrate, then that's the goal. Also, a lot of communities use events as an economic development tool to get people to come to a downtown district, for example, and shop there and discover the restaurants and discover the retailers. Also, just hold up and celebrate and partake in culture, arts, music. That's another goal. To showcase our community. Maybe there's something really special about the community that makes us unique, that we want to showcase for the larger region, and that we specialize in, that is unique to us. Events also can be used for volunteerism and community action, coming together to do a school cleanup, or build a community garden, things of that nature. Events can kind of facilitate fundraising, which is related to raising awareness or a cause, or educating or informing people about an issue, or whatever the case may be. So those are just some potential goals and outcomes. And so one aspect of the discussion would be from the Parks and Recreation Commission. Would welcome thoughts on where should what are some of the most important goals and outcomes for us here in Menlo Park that events could potentially help us get to. So that's what this slide's about. Oh, and creativity. I did scroll all the way down. Celebrating creativity, maker fairs, performing arts, art festivals, things of that nature. All about creativity. So that's another pretty common goal that you might set from the day. And it's fun. There's one more there, of course, fun. Potential partners here in Menlo Park, there are a number. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but just thinking through, who might we work with, the city, that is, and by extension the commission, to help just leverage multiple players and achieve more as a team. Chamber of Commerce, there's small businesses, there's service clubs like Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, there's close to school districts or big players in town. There are a number of corporations, I don't need to name them, but there are several. local nonprofits, community groups, neighborhood groups, all have potentially a big role to play, and could be important partners in putting out events, or coming up with, the type of events that we want to have. So then I'll just turn out to have a couple more slides here till we get to discussion. Here's a look at the community events that the city put out, and this is primarily in the community services division of the department. There may be a few others, but these are the ones housed by our department pre-pandemic. So you can see on the left there's a list of, these are the major events, the bigger ones that we would do. As you can see, there were quite a few of them, and a couple of egg hunts around springtime, a kite day at Bedwell Bayfront Park, the block party, which happens downtown, a number of concerts in the park, in fact, 12 of them, the 4th of July celebration, there are movies in the park, of which there were 9 per year in past years. The Halloween celebration, known as Halloween Hoopla, a holiday tree lighting event, which typically is at Fremont Park, although there's also a tree had historically been lit at the Oneida Harris Center as well. And then Breakfast with Santa at the Arriaga Recreation Center. And so just to give a sense, to make the most of this slide, the number of city staff that historically had been assigned to make the event happen is shown here. So you can see it's a pretty hefty number in some cases. There may be some ways we can do events that involve fewer staff, or maybe this is the right number of staff. It certainly is the number that we use, and the events were successful. I just want to point that out. There's a lot of work that goes into events. I already talked about the number of events per year, and just the kind of time commitment, just for the staff alone on the day of the event, can be pretty substantial. These are all large scale events that many of them are the entire day, just the day of the event, not even counting all the prep time, the logistics, the coordination. And so just the day of event, you can apply some hours to that, kind of just see, sort of on our end in particular, like when fielding these events, here's kind of the capacity that it takes just on the day of. Which demonstrates, I think, the importance and value of community events, that this much had been put into it, because we get a lot out of it as communities. So with that, we'll have a little bit, I would like to have a little bit of discussion, and I hope the commission will jump in, and it's just the beginning of a discussion to be continued next month about the desired goals as the commissioners see it for events. What are some of the priorities, specific events that you feel are really important, specific kind of target areas that are really important? Any suggestions or questions? And then we can come back to that, but then I'll close out the presentation portion with just talking about some potential next steps here. So here we are tonight, just kind of opening the conversation, some initial feedback from the Parks and Recreation Commission. After tonight, the plan would be for the staff to kind of go back to the drawing board, engage a number of internal staff who aren't here tonight, but who are kind of part of the event planning team historically in the past, as well as some folks who might be jumping on at this time, bringing back at least an initial draft plan to the commission next month that has a little bit more detail to it based on all that feedback, and potentially a draft plan to City Council in the November-December timeframe. Give them an opportunity to see the work that's been done and to also comment and give some direction. And again, along with the approved reopening timeline to begin implementing, the plan in 2022. The idea that the plan would, ideally encompass calendar year 2022, kind of like the list I showed earlier. Of course, all those dates are tentative, but that's our plan that we're on right now as far as the timeline. So with that, that's the end of the presentation. I welcome any discussion or feedback from the commissioners at this time. Again, desired goals, priorities, any questions or suggestions. So thank you.
David Thomas.
Yeah, I had a question. So are all these events planned at the beginning of the year for the whole year? Or can you plan them, a couple months ahead of time, kind of continuously?
It kind of depends on the events. Most of the events shown here, the planning period is 6 months plus. You know, for like a really large event, like a big 4th of July celebration, you almost want to be planning that a year in advance, but definitely by 6 months in advance to have everything in place or started. Some of the smaller ones, like the movies in the park, you can definitely a couple of months is plenty of lead time. So as far as like how far in advance they're planned, planning out the whole year in advance is extremely helpful because they do take quite a bit of resources. So you want to kind of map out, okay, what's this year look like and where are we going to have to focus resources along this time continuum here to kind of hit all these points. And I think most of these events have been around for a while. So the calendar had kind of settled in to the list that was shown. So year over year, I don't think it had changed too much. I think the Halloween celebration is maybe a little bit newer or expanded, but when I say that, I mean like 5 years new, as opposed to some of these events go back a little longer. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
I'd love to just put in a couple, my 2 cents on this. I think that there's typical events that kind of can be done safely and just bring the most sort of safe attendance and spirit upbringing that makes what Menlo Park is so special for, like certain things like the tree lighting, a Halloween parade where people can easily, wear masks or walk around outside. And one thing that got really popular with sort of private homes or clubs or schools were doing movies outside and music outside. So I think a lot of the things we do are outdoors and can be adapted and just really could bring back. I do think like mental health and just the need to socialize has been something that we really long for, and those types of things really make us feel special. And the sort of bigger things that required more staff, say when we would have the downtown block parties or things that had rides or booths or things like that, we could shy away from until we really felt like we were in a position to staff it and do it safely. As I do think something like a tree lighting continues to bring joy day after day after day when they see it, even if they can't really attend Santa's breakfast and all the typical things around that.
Awesome, thank you, great input.
Is
So-
it possible for most of these to continue next year with COVID in some form?
That's a great question, Commissioner. It's so hard to use the crystal ball to see what's going to happen with COVID, because I think we've all been burned a number of times thinking, hey, we're making our way out of the woods, and then we turn the corner. It's like, oh, there's 5,000 acres more trees here. But the vaccines have definitely changed the game, although Delta changed it as well. But all those caveats in place, it does seem like in 2022, with the amount of vaccinations and assuming no curveballs, events should be able to return. More or less, as Vice Chair Baskin pointed out, a number of them are outside, and so in that regard, it's far less likely for there to be transmissions as opposed to like in a crowded theater or something. So to answer your question, it does seem really within the realm of possibility to do these next year.
Given that you need a fair amount of time to plan each one of these events, you have to make some assumptions. Your assumptions be basically plan for the worst and hope for the best. And the plans would then be modifiable so that should restrictions be lifted, you would have more community engagement. And what would that look like? Because that would be very different from the planning that you've done in the past.
Yeah, that's a great comment and suggestion. I think, it is easier to plan for an event that's maybe a little bit more simple and streamlined that can then, be expanded quickly, like you've said, sort of plan for sort of I think I heard like sort of the least and, but be ready for the best or for it to expand. So I think that's doable. I think it's finding that sweet spot where, you're committing kind of the right amount of resources out of the gate. So even if the whole thing has to be canceled, you're not stuck too much, with a lot of investment that's gone. So this, I think to Chair Baskin's point, some of the simpler ones, it's a little bit lower risk, even if the whole thing has to be called off or if more people show up, like the movies in the park, some other things like that. Some of the larger ones, the stakes are a little bit higher. And fortunately, a number of those are a little bit later in the year. Maybe the primary one to really think through would be that if an egg hunt happens, because that is relatively early in the calendar year and has been a largish event, and kids get really excited in anticipation of something like that. And then if it has to change or be canceled, it can be a big disappointment. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Sean, for engaging us in the reactivation of this. Did you mention you had a final slide on that, or should we move on to the updated recreation facility use guidelines?
Well, that was the last slide, and I really appreciate the comments so far. Just one other element I did want to touch on, because it did specifically come up at the City Council. It is related to religious holiday related observances. So there was some discussion on the council. I think it really pertains to the holiday tree lighting and celebration, but I think it also could apply to maybe the egg hunt, because those are typically associated with the Christian holidays of Christmas and Easter. And there was some question as to is having that extent of sort of the trappings of those religious observances, is that as inclusive as it could be of folks who are
who don't
other
celebrate
religions,
okay. So
Judaism or Hinduism or whatever it may be.
So looking for guidance from here on, or possibly our opinion on that. I'm going to say that the way we've done it in Menlo Park has been extremely inclusive. And I think many things we celebrate have become much more of a tradition versus having any overarching religious component to it. And I think if these things can be somewhat celebrated in a public school setting or very much in a non-over religious type of way, just having a reason to gather and in some sort of celebratory way, I am so supportive of that. So I would, my personal thought here is to not do away with those specific egg hunt Christmas because they're exclusive. I rather think they are inclusive, even though a Christmas tree, yes, doesn't include every single religion. Happy to hear other people's thoughts on that.
I'd agree with that. I think if you look at the Easter egg hunt, it's really inclusive for the children, and that's where the focus really is. And I've never seen really any overt religious overtones on these celebrations. And as long as that spirit is maintained, I don't see any reason to truncate any of the celebrations that we do have for those reasons.
And I second that with the children. If you don't do it, what's the alternative? Is that we make up some reason to gather children so that they can hunt for things. And I actually think the success of choosing a date for that and the complexities that all come about it sort of seem random and silly versus trying to put together some inclusive activity around a holiday that kind of exists already. David Thomas.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment of the other commissioners. And I also think like this could be something in the abstract. And if we did want to implement change around it, it'd be helpful to have specific examples of actual people that have experiences where they didn't feel included. Because then it'd be a lot easier to fix. I think it's a little more difficult kind of in the abstract to get a sense of whether this is really a problem people face. So just having like more data or feedback there, if people really do want to instigate change, would be helpful.
Yeah, that's helpful, Commissioner Thomas, Chairperson Thomas. So to give maybe a little bit more, maybe a detail or an example, as I understood, like the council discussion about this a few months back, a couple months back. So the holiday tree lighting. If I recall correctly, I think it was mentioned during the meeting, if not directly, kind of indirectly. There's a lot of expenditure that goes into like lighting the trees. So sort of one concern, like what's the right amount of money, that public city money spent on that to achieve the effect. And then I think the other was that there are what some may see as sort of innocuous kind of holiday trappings, if you will, maybe still kind of bear that kind of religious overtone to maybe another observer who's not as accustomed to just seeing it all the time. So, Santa Claus is one. Another might be Christmas carolers singing really traditional kind of Christmas songs at the event. So those are some of the things that I think maybe lend a little more specificity to, I think, just sort of the overarching question here that we've been asked. And then as far as like some specifics, I think it does kind of revolve around what is the role of the local government and sort of taxpayer funding to go toward these activities if they have some of those overtones that some members of the community might feel are not inclusive. And you always have to kind of find the balance there, because the community is incredibly diverse and complex. But I think that if that's helpful, that just to give a little bit more sort of maybe detail to what the discussion seems to be revolving around.
Thank you. Well, I think you have some direction from us on that. Sounds like we're all supportive of maintaining those events. And obviously, if the city council feels there needs to be a tweak to what's done there, I, for one, have not seen during my time here, and it would fall under our purview, these events, anyone write in or comment to us about feeling excluded at one of these, or having any sort of bad feelings about any religious or sort of exclusive feelings towards it. So gotten way more complaints about dogs and playgrounds than ever that. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the discussion. It's very helpful. Thank you.
So we also have, now moving on to E2, the updated recreation facility use guidelines.
Yeah, just pulling them up here for the commission. So this was in the staff report. So just briefly, this is just one of our policies related to members of the public using recreation facilities as we prepare to reopen further, in particular the recreation center and the gymnasium. We updated the guidelines and kind of incorporated some elements from a couple of the other facilities like the library, just to ensure that everyone's on the same page, visitors and staff alike, about the purpose of these facilities, for people to use them for their intended use, to recreate, and to have a safe and welcoming and pleasant and comfortable environment that everybody feels like they can use, and that behaviors of users are such that they don't hinder the ability for other people to use the facility. So very basic stuff, but it does require kind of listing out here's sort of the allowed conduct, and here's the conduct that's not allowed, and having policies like that in place empower the staff to first of all enforce them, and if there are behavior problems that are impacting other people's ability to use the facility, then we can kind of take steps to intervene and so forth, as kind of outlined there. So we do have a practice of making sure that the commission knows what the guidelines are and is aware when there are updates to them. In this case, there's nothing really new being added here, but certainly some additional just sort of depth and clarification and detail have been added to these guidelines. So I'll stop there, and then if there are any questions about them or suggestions for changes, we're happy to hear them.
Does anyone have any clarifying questions or suggestions for changes for staff? And Linda, just for clarity, do we have any public comment on this item?
So if any public in attendance would like to address the commission on item E2 of the agenda, go ahead and use the raise hand feature now. I do not see any public comments on this item.
Great, thank you. It did not look like there were any questions on this one. And so moving on, we have department updates, also a linked staff report included here as well.
Yes, and just really quickly, again, it's written in the report, but the big news is demolition has begun on the Menlo Park Community Campus project. So the former Onetta Harris Community Center, Senior Center, Pool House, Youth Center, those buildings are all in the process of being demolished. The materials are all being recycled and reused to the greatest extent possible per the city's zero waste policies. There will be some kind of construction impacts, noise and dust, but appropriate mitigating measures are being taken. Super exciting. So the site is scheduled to be cleared by the end of October. There is a tentative sort of time frame for a groundbreaking event to occur in the first week of November. I'm hoping that we'll have a firm date to announce here within a week or so. All of the commissioners, of course, be invited to attend that, and I really encourage you to attend. This is a big deal for Menlo Park to be building this new community center, and it'll be here in 2 years. So that's the main thing, and then there's also an overview of the interim services that we're providing while the facility is being reconstructed, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Linda, do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
Yes, so if any public would like to address the commission on item E3 of the agenda, you could use the raise hand feature. I do not see any public comments.
Well, that is very exciting to see some movement there. Does anyone have any questions for staff on the demolition and interim services? All right, seems that we are excited and would like to see it in person soon. So next up we have agenda item E4. It's the tentative agenda calendar, which was attached for us to review. And we can see it here. Thank you very much. So we have the aquatics program comparative data, which we had Tim Sheeper's team here at a previous meeting. I want to say maybe 2 meetings before. And also topic development for our joint meeting with the special meeting with the Library Commission. I believe we should also add there the subcommittee selection to that.
Yes.
And we do have a number of unscheduled future items, but unless any of those seem to have really moved up in priority, I feel like we will have a pretty meaty discussion amongst the topic development, choosing a subcommittee, and the aquatics program always has a lot of conversation around it.
Yes, and if I may, Madam Vice Chair, I do want to give just sort of an update about meeting format. So you may notice on this agenda calendar here, the red text sort of offers potential meeting locations. So I do have an update on the virtual meetings. So the governor signed legislation last week that empowers local governments and other districts that are governed by the Brown Act to continue to meet virtually for 30-day periods, at which time the governing body needs to take an action every 30 days to kind of extend the time frame where they can still meet virtually without the Brown Act requirements that make it difficult. As long as the emergency exists, and I believe that refers to the state emergency that we're currently under with COVID, and that governing body, in this case, that would be the city council, would need to make a determination in their resolution that convening meetings in person would still present a public health threat. So that goes into effect as of, I believe, October 1st, because the current suspension expires on at the end of this month on the 30th. So it's anticipated that the city council, its first meeting in October, will go ahead and make that extension, which would be for 30 days for the month of October. So I think odds are very, very high that this meeting will be in Zoom again next month. But it's like a month-to-month kind of deal where the council has to renew it for 30 days at a time. So at this point, we'll see what happens for the November meeting. That's the joint meeting with the Library Commission, you may recall, and that's on a different date than usual. That's the third Monday of the month. So November 15th is the third Monday. So if we are needing to have it in person, then we'd propose having it at the Bellhaven Branch Library, since it's in the neighborhood and it's the most convenient location for that. But we'll see how it goes. But I wanted to call that to your attention because it affects how we meet and for how long we'll be doing so.
Great, thank you. I also think we could address, there were some things I didn't want to fall by the wayside when we were talking about brainstorming different sort of things given reactivation of, say, Arriaga, and the gymnastics program won't happen, but we have been talking about, I saw some inquiry about, a Menlo Park chess club that could happen outside, or, other sort of sports things that we were thinking about to utilize our events. So maybe finding some way to make sure we're always engaging on that and keeping that as a topic of our focus for us too. Because just with the success of pickleball and that being pushed, a topic that maybe we can come to agreement on that we like and we can find a home for, that would be a great idea too. Not sure what we could call that, but
it sounds. You mentioned pickleball. That's a pilot project. Would it be captured if it was sort of like pilot recreation projects and programs?
Yes.
So that it's like, hey, here's some new things we want to try, some innovative things, and we, as a pilot, might be the best way to just get them going, like we did with pickleball.
Exactly. That sounds great.
Okay, we'll kind of capture it that way. One last thing I'll just point out, we don't have to make a decision now, but the December meeting would be fairly deep into what is traditionally kind of like a winter recess holiday kind of season. So I think in the past, the commission has opted to cancel the December meeting. So again, you don't have to do that now because the full commission's not here, but I do want to point that out. December will be here before we know it. So I bring it up now.
That might make sense to discuss at the next meeting if we have a fuller group then, because I do think we could probably have a very good idea of who will be around then or not. And that's generally when we make the decision because people have their vacation plans set and family plans set. Do any of the other commissioners have comments on the agenda for next month and any other maybe unscheduled items they would like to add or edit? Okay, thank you. And Linda, do we have any comment? Oh, I did not call for public comment on this. Do we have any public comment on the Parks and Recreation tentative agenda calendar?
So if any public in attendance would like to address the commission on agenda item E4, go ahead and use the raise hand feature now. And I do not see any public comment.
Excellent. So moving on to our final topic here, the commissioner reports. I know that we had spoken and we will get this sorted out if how we would like to structure commissioner reports, but if any commissioner has anything they'd like to call out or make a short report on items of interest to the entire commission, please take this time to do so. Peter, how's pickleball doing over at Nealon?
Oh, like I've said, I drive by there pretty often, and always seems like there's people out there. And we were definitely worried about the tennis conflicts, and really it hasn't been a problem at all. I mean, tennis people have been very nice and very considerate, and so have the pickleball people, and it seems to be working great. Yeah.
Fantastic. I don't think this email was, I think it was only sent to myself and Aurora and some staff, but we had an individual reach out about starting a Menlo Park Chess Club, which I thought was a very interesting cross-cultural, cross-age, cross-community idea, and something that could be done outside, low resource use for us. So I know Alan, I believe, will be liaising with that person to reach out and hear what he has to say about bringing that. So that might be something new as well.
Like in a park or something.
And I think that would be great. Kind of mimic a New York Central Park
Right.
sort of scene.
Right.
That would be
Right.
excellent.
Right. Yeah.
David or Peter, any other topics you think might be of interest? Well, thank you, everyone, for engaging with us on these different items. And I see if there is no other comments, I see it is 7:53 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone, well, good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Thank
Night.
you.
Bye.